Hello and welcome.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Serena, and together we're Femme Noir.
This show is all about women, specifically in film.
We are going to review and analyze movies that are written by, directed by, or starring women.
And we can't wait for you to join us.
Tune in and listen wherever you listen to podcasts, or join us on YouTube. I'm so glad that you finally watched this movie. I honestly was so shook when you said you hadn't watched it. I was like, wait, you haven't seen this movie yet? Like, it's so, like, it's almost too mainstream, you know?
I've seen bits and pieces. Like, I knew of it, and my dad used to love that movie, and whenever it was on, he would watch it, but I would just, like, come into the room, watch 2 minutes, and then leave. Like, I was never interested in watching it. Okay, so I'll introduce the movie before we get into it. Today we're talking about Legally Blonde, directed by Robert Lukic. Ooh, I don't know how to say his last name. Lukitic. Written by Karen Mekula-Lutz, Kristen Smith, and Amanda Brown. And the film stars Reese Witherspoon as Elle Woods, a student at Harvard Law, who originally applies and gets in to get back at her ex-boyfriend, and gets into some shenanigans.
So much more.
Yeah. Imagine that being like your revenge. Is you're like, I'm just gonna get into Harvard Law, like just like get back at him, like, just to piss him off a little bit. I wish.
That's probably actually one of my favorite parts of the movie, is that they were like, there's no feasible way that this woman would actually get into Harvard, so they made her a diversity like applicant. Like, they're like, yeah, well, we're always talking about expanding like our horizons, and so she's literally like the diversity student, which is like, is so funny to me, because my brother, he's been recently doing like college applications and stuff, and he always gets mad when people like tell him, because he's half black, who are like, oh, well, like, it'll be easy for you to get into college because like you're a black kid, because he goes to a school that's majority white, and you know, we get a lot of those microaggressions often. And he's like, please stop throwing this. And they're like, yeah, but like affirmative action, isn't that like what you guys want? And we're like, oh my god, please stop. Like, please shut up. Because we're like, historically speaking, affirmative action has rarely actually helped out black and brown people, because also, if you actually look, there's many studies done and statistics and facts that prove this. The people that end up benefiting from affirmative action are white women and Asian Americans.
So this movie is accurate to real life.
Super funny. Yeah, I like it always stands out to me, but I guess like a lot of people don't like recognize this very, very specific detail of how she gets into Harvard. Is she's basically an affirmative action student. And I think that's probably actually my favorite detail of the whole movie, because they're like, yeah, this is feasibly the only reason she would get into Harvard, because she's done none of the like pre-law work to get in. But they're like, I mean, she passed the LSATs, like, I mean, I guess. And
they gave her
so
a 4.0.
I know, she's good. Like, she's got like great.
She's got the brains.
Skills.
She's got it all.
Great studying skills. Yeah, and they're like, yeah, why not? Sure, we need more diversity on our campus.
No, it's a fun concept, and it was a fun idea. I always liked that idea. I think it's fun when they kind of do that stuff. Like, film is one of the only ways that you can really explore those like scenarios, you know, like fantasy scenarios.
Yeah, but like, what
so
if?
I thought it was a fun concept. Yeah. First impression, I thought, just from what I've heard, and people tend to group this movie in with movies like Clueless and like other sort of 90s movies and stuff like that. I would say that this is like a rom-com, or like first impression was that it was like a kind of a rom-com. I guess after watching it, maybe not so much. There was a lot of stuff between her and the boyfriend, and like that's kind of what it always comes back to, is like stuff between her and the boyfriend. Maybe that like final scene where they're in the whatever, where she has that like moment in court, that was not very rom-com-y. Like, that made it felt like a different movie at that point.
And I feel like this goes back to the discussion on like Happiest Season, and when we did Happiest Season, and then we also did You've Got Mail, and how we talked about like movies are generally labeled rom-com when they cater to women, and I just think that that's like really funny because a lot of movies that are like considered rom-coms, like Legally Blonde and like Clueless, because even Clueless is like it's not like a romantic thing, because the whole deal with that one, I'm pretty sure, it's also directed by a woman, Amy Heckerling. But yeah, like even that one is like, oh, like you're the popular girl in school and you're gonna teach this other girl that's not popular like how to be popular, like kind of a deal. And I just find it so funny because it's like, yeah, a lot of movies that are like labeled as rom-coms are specifically like ones that are catered to women, because there'll be like comedy movies where there won't even be a romantic lead. Like I want to say like the Ghostbusters movie was like targeted for women because it was like, oh, 3 women are doing like the comedy or whatever. And then everyone was like, oh, they've turned Ghostbusters into a rom-com. And I was like, how? It's the...
Okay, that doesn't make sense. Yeah. Yeah, when we asked people what they thought about rom-coms, like when you hear rom-com, do you think it's like for guys or for girls? And everyone said for girls, right? That's what you're talking about? Okay,
yeah, like we said that. And then like, yeah, just like in general, like it'll be a movie. And even like even women feel this way, which we also talked about with the You Got Mail episode, is that like when movies are targeted and advertised for women, we're like immediately put off because oftentimes they're written by men. And so we don't expect to be like represented in those ways. Whereas it's wonderful when a woman writes them because they're infinitely better and actually representative, which like this movie, like we actually relate with these movies so much more than we would if there was like a man, but then it gets written off because of like gender contamination of like, oh, it's got a female audience, so men can't be into it, or if a man is into it, he's like, just dumb. It happens a lot with like music and the Beatles, One Direction.
The Beatles? Oh, like guys like don't like the Beatles. Wait, at the time.
Guys love the Beatles now, but at the time it was like a woman's band. Like, oh, got like.
I was like, what?
What was it like? English Fever or something. There would be like screaming like bands of girls and like women that would like pass out because they're like obsessed with the Beatles, and then they like completely wrote off the Beatles as being like an actual like band that made good music because their entire audience was basically women, until way later down the line now you're like super high and mighty if you know the Beatles and you actually listen to all of their discography and you're a man. Stupid. Same thing with like One Direction. And they're like, oh, you like Harry Styles because he was part of One Direction. It's like, why? Because women, like, he makes legitimately good music, and he's never tried to like alienate his fan base because they're primarily women, which I think is also interesting. Like, he actually just
we just have to wait for their Beatles glow up, like.
Yeah, we just have to wait for men to get on board.
Yeah, in 30 years they're gonna be vintage and cool.
Yeah, in 30 years.
For
Harry
everybody.
Styles is gonna be the new Mick Jagger.
Yes. No, that's not even a joke. That's true. That's true. Up. He's on the way.
Straight
on the way.
I like this resurgence that we have of like Legally Blonde becoming mainstream again. Like you've got all these like TikToks and like Instagram posts of people like referencing like Legally Blonde. Because it was like how old was this movie? It came out in like 2000? 2002?
It's like 1999.
Dang. Like in terms of like our lifespan, 2001. Yeah, in terms of our lifespan, this movie is almost as old as we are. Like it's only a few years younger than us. It's literally a year older than my younger sister, who is actually 19. Like, so this movie's been out for a while, and I just love that like Gen Z is like, oh my god, this movie's amazing. We're like, yes, it is. Thank you so much for bringing this back, because I forgot how much I love this movie.
One of the things I like that I had never known, because I've seen stuff around like about the movie, I've seen like quotes and whatever, this and that. I didn't know about I don't know if you'd call it a subplot, but the ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend was like a bigger character in the movie than I thought she was gonna be, and I liked it. I liked the dynamic. I like the sort of like enemies to friends sort of thing. I like it when that's a possibility. I hate it when the movie ends and there's like the good girl, the protagonist, and then the mean girls and whatever and that kind of stuff. I like it when they end up friends. I think it's
And
cool.
I think I like it. I think I like it even more, the dynamic, because if this movie were in the 90s, or even like around Mean Girls era, like the main character, she would have been considered the mean girl because she's the popular one. Whereas Vivian isn't the popular one, so she's like jaded against the like popular mean girl. And so she ends up being the like mean one, and like the roles are switched. And I just thought that was like super interesting because even in the sorority, you see this often in movies where there's like a college campus or like graduate school or whatever, and there's like a sorority, is that there's always like some power dynamic between like the women where it's like, oh, you've got the top dogs, you've got like the other ones that are just following them all around, and then you've got the top dogs like henchmen. But in this one, Elle is like, she's the top dog, but only because she's actually like an older sister to everybody, and her henchmen are just like her two best friends, and everyone just like goes through them to talk to Elle and like talk to each other and stuff. But then all of the other girls, they're all sisters to each other as well, which I thought it was a very different look at sororities than what you see a lot of times in media. And I liked it a lot because even when she's like, I'm going to go to Harvard to get back at him. Like, he did this terrible thing to me. I'm going to do it. And they're all just like, yeah, do it. Like, we'll help you study. Like, they literally are like doing their like ab workouts, and they're like quizzing her on her like notes and stuff, like just to help her out. And I just thought that was a really cool, I guess, dynamic to see on screen, because that's very much what it is actually like for women most of the time. Like I know I've had study sessions where I'm like, I have no idea what you're doing, but if you need to just like say your vocab words out loud and go through them, like, sure, I'm just gonna continue to like work out over here on the side. You can say them out loud, I'm listening, and it's gonna help you. Go for it. Like, that's so much more accurate than the, oh well, I have to be smarter than her, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna memorize all of these words, but I can't do it because at this time I have to get an appointment, and then at this time I have to go to what t-shirt contest or whatever, and they're like, and then I'll get my studying in and nobody can see me studying, where she's like actively studying in front of everybody that knows that she's the pretty popular one. And I just thought it was super cool because they didn't have to hide that she was smart the whole time. And they even hint that right off the bat with like the dress thing. When she's getting the dress, she's like, oh, I like this dress. And the girl's like, oh, I've got this one. Like, I'm going to get one on her. And she offers her, like, a last season dress. And she's like, I know this dress is last season. Please don't try to, like, outsmart me. I'm not stupid. Like, kind of a thing. And so I think I also like that it plays between the two dynamics of, like, what people assume to be intelligence versus, like, what intelligence can be. Like, there's different types of intelligences. And yeah, I thought it was, I like really love how they kind of subvert all of the like assumptions that most people go into a movie with.
I've heard this word before, or sentence, or whatever phrase before, and I don't know if I'm using it correctly, but have you heard of like a weaponized femininity? Have you heard of that kind of stuff? Yeah, and that is really common, I think, especially in like early 2000s movies. It's like they would be exactly like freaking magazine model, except they're like, but I can use my high heel and stab you, or, you know, I'm gonna put my lipstick on before I punch you or something. And that one, like, I think I've seen it. Like, there was even
tough or whatever.
Yeah, and to me, I don't know how I feel about that. It's, I guess at the time, maybe it was different. That's like 20 years ago now that this came out. Like, maybe it did mean something to people at the time. To me now, it just seems like similar to, we talked about a little bit before, how they were like, oh, they would make women suffer on screen before, unaware that they were doing that, and now they're doing it on purpose. But they're like, no, it's okay, because like the women were writing her to like it or to do this and stuff like that. Seems kind of the same sort of thing to me, where they're like, oh, well, we still want like a sexy lady, and we still want, you know, we don't want like to push the boundaries of gender or presentation or appearance or value, and we want her to be everything that women are but we're just going to make her aware of it. You know, I don't know. So
yeah.
maybe at the time this was like amazing. I don't really know. I don't really remember Clueless that much. I did see it. I don't really remember it. I don't really know what kind of stuff they did in that movie. Yeah, this seemed like kind of that same sort of thing. I remember like in the Scooby-Doo movie, this was like early 2000s. Daphne was sort of like that too. I remember her being like super like hyper feminine, and she like gets them out of a situation by like using her foundation or something and like puts it on something, whatever. And she's like, girls can do shit too or whatever. I always thought that was so weird. Even as like a kid, I was just like, whatever. Like it was just weird.
I know we can. Yeah, because like as a woman watching it, you're like, yeah, I know. And it's just like, I guess like a thing that like the male audience would never think about. They're like, you can like do that with your like compact mirror, and you're like, yeah, it works the same as any other like, mirror. Like, oh, you as a man can go out with a magnifying glass and kill ants. I can also do that with a mirror because they're practically the same thing. Like just because it looks different doesn't mean it's the same tool. But yeah, you're right. There's like this hyper feminine.
But I don't think it was bad in this movie.
Yeah, they didn't do it that bad in this movie. It's not like, yeah, it's like they present her.
It was part of her character,
and then they subvert it by giving her the characteristics that are. And I think that was kind of like the point of the movie, was to kind of like, because this came off the heels of what, like Sex in the City, where that was kind of like a big thing of like women like sex and women can like, you know, feminist things, and that was like the peak of feminism at the time that it came out. And like now we look at it and we're like, really, that's so dated. But like at the time, that's what they were talking about. And so this movie coming out on its heels, it's like it kind of makes sense, because it's like it's almost like a response to that. Like, okay, we get it, first wave feminism, like what? Great. For a second wave, like, okay, we're gonna move into a new era. And sadly, this era is just now getting to the point where we're starting to talk about things that came out back then that we're still trying to make points of today, like in this 20 years. Because I guess in the span of things, it's not that long, but for the fact that it's been our lifetime, it feels like it. But like, yeah, I guess like literally our parents would be like, this has only been around for like 20 years. They're like, that's not even a third of my lifetime. And we're like, oh yeah, I guess this is our whole life. Like I forget that people are like old, like have been around for a while, and then we're gonna be those people.
Damn.
Hopefully.
At our parents listening to this.
Well, I mean, it's just like a learning curve. It's not like they haven't been paying attention. It's just that like we're so immersed in it, and they're still like they're not as immersed in it because they've already been so immersed in other things too.
I kind of liked her character in that she kind of didn't have any weaknesses, but it was in a way that was kind of like a guy character, where it's like they really just didn't nerf him at all. Like they put all the good shit in one character and then gave her like a physical, tangible conflict with that man who was running the internship or whatever, and he was like trying to get with her, and she's like, I really want this for my career, and then she ends up like physically overcoming him. It was nothing internal, which is really cool. She's like, no, I know I got it. I got, you know, all my shit together, and you know, I'm pretty, I'm smart, I can do all this stuff. And then she overcomes the physical conflict, and then or the external conflict, and then prevails. Which is pretty cool. And I wouldn't say that she maybe like doesn't have weakness. Like there were moments that like, wasn't she in like the nail salon, and like with that woman they would have like sentimental talks and like vulnerable talks and stuff like that. But it was nothing like I don't know, I kind of liked it. I don't think it was weird. I don't think it was unrealistic. Just thought she was cool. I enjoyed it.
No, it's cool because I feel like she wasn't weak in the sense that like even when she had vulnerable conversations, like where they talked about like their feelings or whatever, like they were never made to seem like weak for that. And then like I think it's interesting because I would say like like she didn't have anything holding her back except for how other people viewed her. That was it. The one thing that she had to struggle with was not letting how other people viewed her get to her. Like, that was the one, because she was about to drop out. She was going to quit. And then the woman, her one woman professor, was like, well, if you're going to let other people tell you how you are, like, who you are, then you're not the woman I thought you were. And I really like that they had the woman say that too, because again, it's like woman supporting woman type of thing without it being like cringy.
Mhm.
It's just like another woman's like, I had to go through the same thing that you are currently going through. Every woman is also going to have to go through the same thing, at least right now. Like, I'm watching you go through the same thing that I went through. It's not you, it's them, and you can't let them get to you because it's not your fault. You're not responsible for it. Which I guess is also why I really thought it was interesting, like Vivian and Elle's relationship, because at the end, when, or I guess like close to the end, when like Elle walks out and Vivian saw that like the guy had put his hand on her knee, and she was like, "Oh, so like you basically like had sex and like fucked your way to the top, like yeah, I thought we were friends, but you betrayed me or whatever." And she's essentially villainizing her own prettiness against her, and like just how she like is perceiving Elle in that moment. And then she finds out later, she's like, "Oh my god, I thought that was completely different and I'm so wrong for that." And I like that they had her like realize that herself, but then at the same time she was like, I was worse to her than, like, I'm almost as bad as everyone else just because I put my assumptions on her as well. And I like that they were able to like reconcile after that, because Elle's like, it's okay, I understand, like I would never do that to you, of course, because Elle hasn't grown up in like she hasn't really grown up in the kind of like transactional female relationship thing. Like her entire life has just been like, yeah, women, we're like gonna hang out, we're gonna have fun. Like none of her other relationships, like in the sorority with her best friend at the sorority, like none of those were transactional. They just did stuff together because they were like a family. But everything in the law school is very transactional, and it's like, okay, you win this one, okay, if you don't win this one, you're gonna have to do the work and you have to get it next time. Like you have to get the coffee this time. If you don't get the coffee, you're not allowed in the room. Like everything at the law school is very transactional, and so are most of the friendships. They're like, okay, we're going to be in the study group because you were in women's studies, you were at Harvard, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we're all going to be a team now. No one else can come. And they're like, no, you don't get to be in the team because you're too pretty. They're like, this is weird. So I think it's really interesting, like the reconciliation of like the transactional relationship versus the non-transactional relationship, and like, yeah, you did me dirty, but I'm not gonna like ding points from you because of that. Like you're not gonna lose our friendship because like of that transaction between us. Like there wasn't anything for you to lose from that. It's, yeah, I thought it was really cool. I love that movie.
I like the way that you put that. I really like that phrase, like the transactional relationships. I think that's really interesting. And I wouldn't even say that detracts from it. I think that they were still, like, you could tell they were deep relationships as well. Which kind of added to, like, all of the conflict, because she was a very passionate person, and you can tell she, like, would get really attached and stuff. And so that was, like, that made every relationship that she did have, even the woman doing her nails, like, she was able to have that relationship with her, and you could tell it was, like, deep. Like, she kind of is able to, like, form relationships with everybody, which is just another, like characteristic that they gave her, that they were like, let's just give her all these amazing positive qualities.
Because
yeah,
I feel like oftentimes, like when it's like a man, he's like the lone guy. He's like the, like, oh, don't worry what he says to you because like that's just how he is. He's just kind of rough around the edges. You just got to get used to it, kind of a thing. Like if it was a guy, that would have probably been his trait. But because it's a woman, they're like, oh well. The thing that men absolutely hate about women is that they're like chatty and sociable and like people. that's technically deemed like a woman's trait, or like a feminine trait, I guess. And so I love that they gave her that aspect, and they allowed it to be a strength. Like she was able to get close to.
I interpret it as a strength.
Yeah, like they it allowed her to get close to like the bodybuilder, the booty buster lady, their client. It allowed her to get like so many places that other people couldn't get in, because she was willing to like have a conversation and get to know a person. Because even with like the nail lady, like they ended up becoming like best friends. she uses her own skills of just like, I'm in law school and I know some big terms and this guy's probably not going to expect him to come out of me, so maybe I can scare him into giving her the dog bag, which works. And she's like, yeah, well, it's your dog. Like, hello, of course I'm going to get your dog bag. Precious. I love it.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I'm trying to think of other stuff that I liked. Honestly, I just really liked it all the way around. Like, I almost have like nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah.
It was really good.
It's great.
Yeah, it was like the ideal life, perfect fantasy. I got super lost in it. I was like super into it. The music was cute. The montages were cute. Yeah, the character dynamics were cool. I'm obsessed with the like new girlfriend. I'll find out her name because it was just like she was
Vivian?
so good.
Vivian.
Yeah, Vivian. Who plays?
I don't remember what her last name was, but I feel like her actress or whoever plays Vivian, like, isn't she like low key like a popular like around that era like actress?
Maybe Selma Blair. She was in Hellboy. She was in both Hellboys. Yeah, she was in a lot of like, early 2000s movies.
So I was like, she looks so familiar and I can never tell why.
Yeah. I think in the movie, who did she remind me of? Maybe like Aubrey Plaza or something. And I was just obsessed with her like bad, like she was rude and it was
her
just
like bob.
So good.
I love her hair. Yeah. Like so cute.
Into it. She was really cool. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff that I just never would have known just from like what I had seen. Yeah.
And I love that I love that she ends up solving the case by using her knowledge of very feminine things. Or like something that's deemed super feminine. They're like no one else in the courtroom's thinking like, oh well, obviously the something like clockulate or whatever. Yeah, like her perm or whatever, and they're like, yeah, well she like wet her hair, so it's gotta be the fact that like you either didn't wet your hair or you should like or you're lying about getting a perm, and so obviously it's one of the two. And they're like, what the heck, how would you know that? And it's like, well, because I'm really into hair care.
Well, yeah, and what's cool too is it went further than that, and she was like naming the chemical. She was like, the whatever like, chemical reacts
really
to
into this.
Yeah, and so she was like smart. It was like she was like way wonderful. Beyond. Yeah, it was really cool.
So good.
Yeah,
and I guess this is one of those things again where like it subverts the idea of like the intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And like the idea that like intelligence has to be like mathematical, but then it also has to be like masculine, because it's like hair products. Okay, those are still chemicals. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's the same. Like doesn't mean it's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that they like did that. Like it makes me really happy because it wasn't like they were trying to make her the feminine version of a man character. Like, I feel like in a lot of the movies where it feels wrong and they're like, oh, women can do it too, is that they have a female character that they're trying to make to be like they have the man character and then right next to it they're trying to like parallel the man character with like a woman character.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, she has to have all the same traits. And it's like, they don't have to be. Like, they don't.
Yeah.
She can be just as good as the male character without being the same as the male character. Like, the problem is that they're trying so hard to make her the, like, antithesis of women that, like, men should like, while they're completely ignoring the fact that women watch movies too.
Yeah. I think it kind of comes down to like individual projection. Like when guys make movies and they write male characters, and especially protagonists, they'll pull out all the stops and they're like, oh, he's got to be really cool, he's got to be this, he's got to be that, and they'll just like do the ideal guy. But I feel like, you know, in like women, well, we kind of talked about it a little before, and you said there's a director who writes men really well, and we might do that later. But then I feel like in general, or maybe not, maybe I shouldn't say in general, but I feel like it would I feel like, you know, women, I would give them credit to know what the ideal like women protagonist would be, and like what a really fleshed out women character would be. And so when a woman writes it, they're able to say, oh, well, we should give her this and that, and just pull out all the stops and do all that. And I feel like they did that in this movie. I feel like typically they don't, because they don't want to have that same effect where you can tell when you're watching a movie if there's a really if he's almost too perfect male protagonist, then it's, I don't know, I feel like it's hit or miss there, but I really like it when they kind of just make him the best.
Like, why not?
Because why not?
Like for example, Captain Marvel, which we should talk about as well.
We should,
it's very similar.
We could.
Because a lot of the comments that most men were like, "Oh, I don't like Captain Marvel. She's too perfect. She's too powerful, or whatever." And we're like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." We're like,
it's
why?
Like,
just because she's a woman? Like, you literally have like Iron Man, blah blah blah. You have like Superman. Like, theoretically, they're unstoppable, right? So why does the female superhero have to be any different?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Like, we gotta stop holding back.
Sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really dumb. But yeah, and I feel like this has to do with a little bit. I know we talked about this not on air, but we were having a completely separate conversation once it was about a TikTok or something, but about like the male gaze and how women like grow up, like, I guess, like subject to the male gaze, so they know how things are perceived when it comes to like the male gaze. But if the roles were reversed, like men don't grow up under the female gaze, so in order to like understand and like write women well, they have to like teach themselves to do that and like they have to actively work on paying attention to like how they're viewing women and stuff like that. Whereas we as women don't have to worry about that because, one, we've been subject to the male gaze our entire lives, so we know what the male gaze is, but then we're also women, so we know what the female gaze is too. And it's almost like when we have those characters that you're talking about, the ones that are like that aren't done well, it's almost like when a woman does write them, it's almost like they're trying so hard to go against the male gaze instead of just embracing the female gaze.
Yeah. Yes. And then it's kind of a double-edged sword because then they're spending so much time. They're like, the goal is to not associate with the male gaze at all, but then they're focused fully on it.
Everything through the male gaze. They're
it's like, just do what you want. I don't know. I feel like this movie, they totally just went like, well, fuck it. Like, let's just do it. Like, why not? And I think more movies should do that. Like, even if it maybe doesn't resonate well with everybody, like, I feel I mean, this is like it's more than a cult classic. Like, this movie has probably made so much money and definitely propelled Reese Witherspoon into like stardom. So
like, she's very much into the like female empowerment, good roles, and like strong roles for women that aren't like stereotypes, that aren't like things that like like, because this one is kind of one of her like big ones, she just kind of was like, yeah, I love this and I want other people to like grow up in creative like fields where they can also experience this. And so she does a lot of work for that, and I think it's super cool. So does Gina Davis, and she's in Thelma and Louise, which we'll also probably talk about because that movie is another one that's very it's, oh my gosh, the movie's amazing. We'll talk about it.
Yes. Okay, but for now, we can move on and do FMF if you would like.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So we got the boyfriend. Oh, we got the good boyfriend, the Owen Wilson brother. We got Luke Wilson as Emmett Richmond. And then we have the ex-boyfriend. His name was Warner?
Yeah.
I don't remember them saying that. Okay. Warner Huntington III, played by Matthew Davis. And then there's Dorky David. We could do David.
The guy that like helps, that she like pretends to be like an ex-lover of, so that other women would see him as like attractive.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, we could do David.
The really nice, precious child.
He was Count, as played by Oz Perkins.
He's like, yeah, let me just also help you because you were nice to me.
Yeah. Those were just, those are the first 3 guys on the Letterboxd like cast list. So that's pretty good. Like, there's all these people are girls, and there's like 1, 2, 3 that were guys. That's cool.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I feel like mine would be exactly the way that it played out in the movie. Friendzone David, Mary, Wilson. That's not even his name. What is his character's
Emmett.
name? Marry the guy that she ends up being engaged to, and then I would screw Warner.
Warner.
Metaphorically. Because that's what happens to him in the movie. He gets screwed.
Oh, you're funny. You got jokes.
Be here all night. Let's go.
I think I would friend zone Warner because I did not like him at all. I'm just looking at his picture and I'm just like, he was evil, so I didn't like him. So friend zone. Actually, he was evil, so I don't even want to be friends with him. But he was like, "Oh, you're so unprofessional," and like that's cringy. And I was like, he sucks. So
what was the line? He was like, I need like a Jackie O or something like that, and she's like, is it because I'm too blonde? He's like, I'm Marilyn.
Oh yeah, he's like, she's like,
Jackie.
brunette. Yeah, he was fucked up for that. Anyways, she deserves better. Anyways, and then I would probably fuck Emmett, Mr. Wilson.
Emmett, that's his name.
Yes, and then I think I would marry David because he was a nice guy.
So was that man.
Yeah, and I trust him. So
yeah, that's why I'd be friend.
Yeah, it would work out.
It's good. It's good. I'm so curious. Like, what would you rate this movie, though?
Well, do you want to do Bechdel test first? Do we even have to? I mean, it passes, but
it obviously passes.
Yeah,
it passes immediately.
Well, we can talk about there's no like women of color.
Yeah, there are. The judges. Black lady.
Man, that kind of sucks though. Because they literally could have made any of the other people. Like the fact that I was like, oh, these are all women and they're all white.
Yeah.
These are all white
people.
people.
The black lady, the judge. And that's pretty much it. There's like extras in the background that are of color, but none of them have like speaking lines.
Yeah. Like the judge, I wonder if they even gave her a name. Like whatever. Or just like judge.
Or just judge.
Yeah. So that's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, because they had to give her some type of name because she was speaking lines.
Yeah. Just judge whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of unfortunate. It's always a wasted opportunity when literally, the nail lady could have done it. Her two best friends could have done it. The rival girl could have done it. The new girlfriend, Vivian. They all could have been people of color, but fumble. But it passes, so.
Rich people.
Crumbs. At least it passes.
Rich white people.
Yeah.
Which I guess historically is what those schools would have looked like anyway.
So what happened?
Especially while their diversity hires are white women.
I was about to say, I know, that really exposed them right there when the diversity was not diverse.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, you're right, Peter. Okay, yeah. So I really like this movie. I would give this movie like an 8 because it was like so just enjoyable and fun.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like 9.
Yeah,
because it's just so quotable, but then it's also like just good writing, like representation. Mm-hmm. Like I like that the plot makes sense, even if you stripped away the way that like the representation of all the female characters in the movie are, the plot still makes so much sense, and it bothers me so much when movies don't make sense. Like I'll still rate a movie high, like if representation itself is good, like if the characters are good, but sometimes the plot doesn't make sense, and it's like, dang, you have such good characters and the plot doesn't make sense. I mean, like I can't not think about that. But this one, I don't have the problem like at all. I'm like, every time I actually watch the movie, I realize just how much the plot works, and I'm still surprised to this day.
Yeah,
so,
I thought it was really good.
I'd probably give it like a 9.5 maybe. It can't be a 10 because it doesn't have black or like woman of color characters or speaking lines that actually have names, but it's pretty up there. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of drunk when I watched it, but I feel like, I mean, I would watch it again.
Oh yeah, I watch the movie all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, you want a good movie where
I would recommend it.
Just don't feel bad ever? Legally Blonde.
Yeah,
Plus,
honestly,
it's on
yeah, it was like
Netflix
kind
right
of
now,
a feel
so it's
good.
like you can just turn it on and nobody is upset.
Yeah. Yeah, it was worth. I'm happy I finally
Just,
watched
like, a
it.
good one.
I feel like
I'm
I wouldn't
so
have understood
glad
it when I
made
was
you watch
younger,
that
but
movie.
yeah, I'm glad I watched it like now. I feel like I was able to really like get it. Yeah.
So, recommendations. I would actually say Clueless.
I was about to say that, yeah.
And probably her other movie, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Ooh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's the other Amy Heckerling movie that is pretty... It has, like, certain characters that are, like, known for the way that they're written, but that one, fun fact, almost didn't get produced because it deals with female character that gets pregnant and the... Like, I think she gets an abortion or, like, tries to get an abortion.
Ooh.
And so because of that, and it was, like, late 80s, early 90s, it almost didn't make it. Same with that. I would also recommend, and this one might be shocking to people, but I actually have, fun fact, written an essay about this movie and why it's amazing because it's written by women and how it essentially does the same thing as far as like subverting assumptions, is Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, we have to watch that one.
100% recommend that movie. It holds up today, and I would say it's just as good as Legally Blonde. It is just as good. So those are my three, I would probably say. Yeah. Like off the top of my head, definitely those three.
Fuck yeah. I trust you because this movie was really good, and so I would watch those. Clueless, I don't remember, but the other two, yeah.
Clueless is fun.
I don't really watch movies like this, so I wish I had something to contribute, but not really.
No,
Plus, there aren't
make
really
you
that many
watch
movies
these
like
movies.
this. I can't think of another movie where it's like a girl gets up in front of the court randomly, and she's also like, you know, sorority fucking queen, or I don't know what that is, but yeah, it's unique. Yeah. Oh, I guess Mean Girls, honestly.
Oh yeah, Mean Girls is good.
Different subject matter, but I feel like they could take place like in the same universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the high school before.
yeah.
Before
that was her high school.
That was high school.
Yeah, that's funny.
Thank you guys for listening, staying tuned. Please let us know what you thought in the comments. If you want to contribute to the conversation or have anything that you really like or don't like about this movie, please comment down below either on our Instagram or on our YouTube if you're watching or listening to us on there. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Definitely subscribe to us if you're listening to us on like a podcast, whatever, like Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And yeah, thank you so much again. Have a great day. Bye.